everybody. So we're gonna see if it can record too.
Oh yeah, I sent requests. You have to approve.
There's the approval. I approved you. Casey, can you?
Yeah, I think it sent you there too. Yeah.
We're recording because it's retrograde. We know how that goes.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys have everything plugged in.
Yeah.
Protected against all planetary incursions. Back us
You
with
got it, man.
an hour or two as we deliberate over the astrology. I'm gonna draw my phone because we have some notes. Oh yeah. Okay, so everyone on my channel, we're gonna do a trifecta, or the three wise men, or the three idiots, however we want to.
Three nerds.
What did you say?
The three know-it-alls.
Three quacks.
They know it alls. There we go.
Yeah.
Three quacks.
Three quack. That's a good one too. And we're gonna spew some astrological nonsense today. What I propose to these two gentlemen, or ungentlemen, is that we would split up today into 3 or 4 sections, so that we talk about the Chiron aspects as one, and then the Mars Uranus coming up in a couple days as another section, and then the Aries Vortex igniting that's occurring on the 19th of July. And then there was one more. Oh, the Jupiter opposed Pluto, which is happening right now, correct? Yeah, but it's not exact till later in the around the 19th, actually.
Forming right now, yeah.
Because it's everything at 4 degrees on the 19th. So those are the sections. Oh, and the other section is the retrograde, the Mercury retrograde into Cancer. So probably we'll start there because that's the first thing that occurred. And we all felt it. We're all going through it still in ways. So let's share about that one and start there maybe. And you guys want to start it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because I was undecided where I want to start with or what I want to do. So if you have a preference, by all means, you go ahead and start.
So we have a pattern going on with the Mercury retrogrades being in water signs. Like the last Mercury retrograde was in Pisces, and that Pisces Mercury retrograde started at the end degree. I think it was 28 degrees Pisces. So that whole retrograde process remained in Pisces and then stationed direct in Pisces. Because sometimes, or most of the time, when Mercury retrogrades, it's at a point where he will regress back into the previous sign. So I find it interesting that we're having this pattern of the Mercury retrogrades beginning at the end, at the later degrees of a water sign. And so that means we're having approximately 3 entire months of Mercury staying in a water sign, which any of the water signs, it's not the ideal place for Mercury to be because it's emotional, feeling, psychic, intuition. It's the opposite of logic and discerning and boundaries and facts. So I think it's interesting. I think that's an interesting thing to note in terms of what is the greater collective process that humanity is having to move through right now, not just during this Mercury retrograde cycle, but throughout this entire year, throughout this whole year of the fire horse cycle. And so because of this extended amount of time of Mercury being in a water sign, I think we're really being invited to go into that emotional world, to actually pause in life and to feel and to not abandon our logic or reasoning, but to figure out how to turn off the mind. And especially with the South Node in Virgo. So with the South Node in Virgo, it's going to create this phenomenon of becoming fixated on the details or feeling limited based on the analysis of the details. And Virgo is also ruled by Mercury. So it's this interesting thing that I feel we're being invited into sensing and feeling, and also trusting information that you're able to intuit and receive that isn't really being delivered in a logical, direct, or in a manifested way. So I think we're in a place, and it's also relative to the North Node being in Pisces. So with the South Node in Virgo and the North Node in Pisces, we're being invited to to develop more of our capabilities of being in hope, right? With the Pisces energy, hope, or having faith in the divine or higher power, or putting more efforts into prayer and to trusting the process without worrying and sabotaging because of the details. So it's, I'm going to take a chance on this, even though all odds are stacked against me. I'm going to have faith that there's the universe or my higher self or whatever has got my back. And so I think it's an interesting part, especially now that Uranus is in Gemini, because with the Uranus in Gemini, Gemini is the mind, thinking, information. We're going to be in a long period with that Uranus and Gemini transit of becoming overstimulated mentally from the information that is being released all over the place. And so how do we navigate that? How do we not just stick to the truth, but can remain in a resonance of what's important for us to focus with all these distractions and all these different things? So I think that's a really interesting thing to note about this Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And this Mercury retrograde, it's stationed at 26 degrees Cancer. So it was within 2-3 degrees or conjunction to Jupiter in Cancer. So the last time Mercury was in Cancer, I can't recall if he crossed over Jupiter in Cancer or if he met with Jupiter in Gemini. I don't know if the last Mercury in Cancer transit, if Jupiter was in there as well. So I think it's interesting that we've had Jupiter in Cancer for the last 11 to 12 months. And now Jupiter has made his exit and has entered Leo. And right as Mercury stationed retrograde, that was close enough for the messenger to receive a message from Jupiter. And Jupiter has had a lot of challenges in his transit in Cancer. And like what we were saying before we went live about how a lot of people were like, oh, this is going to be great because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Yeah, a lot of good things, freeing up the money, freeing up the energy, all the blessings. But one of the harsh things that Jupiter experienced in his transit in Cancer were the direct squares to Chiron and Aries. So it's interesting because that Chiron and Aries Jupiter Cancer square, it formed. So we were feeling it around September, October, and then it came to an exact square at the end of October, and it stayed within resonance. And then they retrograded and they made another exact square at the end of December, and they still remained within resonance until fading further apart. And now we're dealing, so I'm getting a little distracted, but the fact of the matter is Jupiter is the teacher, right? Jupiter is the philosopher, the teacher, the expander. And I think this 11 to 12 month cycle of Jupiter in Cancer really expanded and opened up a lot of dynamics around Cancerian themes, which is home, family, your country, patriotism, your homeland, your home country, and ancestry, memories, the memories that you inherit from your ancestors, your lineage, and also the mother, home, family, and mother. And so I think with Mercury stationing retrograde right before that, right behind that Jupiter, it's the mind now trying to process and digest all of the lessons and the expansion that Jupiter has been trying to help us become aware of in terms of our family dynamics and the things we've been through. And this Mercury retrograde just started, so there's going to be a lot of transits that occur within this Mercury retrograde, such as the Cazimi, the inferior conjunction, which will happen, I think, on the 19th or the 20th. And then the next day, we're going to have the Cancer new moon. And then when Cancer stations direct, that Cancer station will be at a square to Saturn. And so that's another interesting thing where we're dealing with a planet transiting Cancer, squaring a planet transiting Aries. And so I think we're really in for, I think the collective is really being invited to go through a process of figuring out what sort of layers are crying for attention in regards to family dynamics and perhaps even karma and sins of the father or wounds of the mother kind of things. And there's probably a lot more to that as well that you guys have other input to add to that. So I'll just take a step back from all of that information.
Yeah, that was really good. It was, let's see. I was trying to remember something that you said. Forget exactly what it was, but I do think it was something along the lines of trying to you were talking about the layers of
Yeah.
trying to get past. Yeah. I think what's interesting about that is this Mercury retrograde. I think one thing that as we were going out of Jupiter and Cancer, we were kind of undergoing like a soul search of our family morale, where we come from, stuff like that, and really understanding the dynamics and what belief systems our family dynamics were built on. And I think now that it's moved out and then we're entering into this retrograde was conjuncting kind of the Jupiter, and especially as the full moon happened too in Capricorn. And another thing my mind's jumping to so many things right now. Mercury retrograde, this one thing with it being in Cancer that makes it more interesting is that the impact of this Mercury retrograde is always going to be impacted by the moon and the changing of the moon. So that kind of brings an element of more unstable chaoticness to this Mercury retrograde, where you don't know what you're going to get from one day to the next. It's kind of whatever comes up, whatever resurfaces from a deeper psychological primitive state, moving out of the Jupiter and then going to this retrograde and knowing that it conjuncted with the full moon in Capricorn, and then heading into the new moon that it'll conjunct and the cazimi with the sun. Yeah. It's almost, there's going to be like an overflow of so many things emptying out from that transit from Jupiter in Cancer. But one thing to take note of is that it's all those fast changes and like all those, what Mercury retrograde and the sudden reversals of plans that we get and the miscommunications. It's really important to not take things too personally now as well. And what wounds can be triggered, especially when we can get into that with the Chiron. And just because we're going to be more sensitive, we're going to take offense to comments and tone of voice and stuff like that. And things can get more easily misconstrued because of that reason. And it's just, and then when we think about Jupiter moving into Leo, it's, oh man, now we're like moving into this, this more exuberant, magnanimous, larger than life kind of energy that is trying to kind of open up our truest form of expression, authenticity, out from that deep soul search that we've had. But being square to Chiron, we're like almost kind of wondering, do we deserve it? We're wondering, do we deserve to shine? Do we feel guilty about past beliefs or philosophies we've had or visions or, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And one thing that's, I think, interesting about Jupiter and Leo is that there was an author that had a quote that said, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And I relate that to Jupiter and Leo because Jupiter's all about how we see, how we grow, how we understand, how we basically, our hopes and our expectations, our belief systems, our visions. And so that's how we we are seeing ourselves through Leo, which is always an extension of ourselves. So that's why I bring up that quote, where we see things as extensions of ourselves. And it's kind of going into this Pluto opposition with Aquarius. It's because Aquarius wants to be more objective and detached, to see the bigger picture that's beyond just what's self-related. and what's personal to their own life, like Leo. And what that's going to do is a call for balance to whatever belief systems or morale that we've had that needs to be seen just beyond just ourself and our own life. And we can't always just be living life for ourselves. Oh yeah, yes, I'm gonna go to Disneyland and blah blah blah, this and that stuff like. And I can't wait till this game. If we're just living for ourselves on a moral standpoint, that's gonna grow sour real quick. You know what I mean? We're supposed to, on the back end of pleasure, there's pain, there's suffering, there's all sorts of things. That's why Venus is detriment in Aries and Scorpio. It's so I better stop because I'm going to keep going and coming up with so many things. So I'll take a step back
I'll take
now and kind of
take you up on what you
go
said.
ahead, Meten.
So I'll start with what Mario was addressing, because the Jupiter in Cancer, we all were talking about that before we started. And the Jupiter in Cancer is this experience where, on maybe a mundane level or on a communal level, like we as a people, we all know we're going through a new kind of regenerative growth moment in humanity. We're in the middle of the new era, the 12-year cycle, and we're in the Aries vortex, which hasn't happened for thousands of years. And so if we think back to last year, as Mario was mentioning, there has been a continual negotiation with the Aries vortex and Jupiter in Cancer as soon as it went into Cancer. And that's like us, because as I say on my channel, we're all creating our own Aries vision, our own kind of vortex vision of what we want to renew in our life, wherever our Aries is. And so that was the picture of Neptune and Saturn in conjunct this year on February 17th in Aries. But that was always building and moving towards it and separating as all the planetary cycles move. And that negotiation with Cancer was kind of like, it was a check-in. Okay, here's my vision. I'm trying to refine my vision, but are my feet on the ground? Am I being nurtured? Am I being sustained? Or am I just putting all the energy in my Aries vortex vision without eating, without feeling, without being nurtured, loved, held, all those Cancerian themes?
Yeah.
Wonder, that dynamic, that inner tension, that square with Cancer and Aries, that's a big tension right now in humanity. Because if we span out and we look at it, we have these new imitation mothers appearing on the horizon, right? AI is some kind of mother. It's attempting to be the new parent of humanity. It's asking us to give up our pride, because no human would give up its power to another human. Humans always battle for power. So this AI force comes in almost in a way, or it's projected as some kind of equalizing force, or some illusory equalizing force. It's not human per se, but let's let it direct humanity so that we don't battle each other anymore. And it's like the neutral judge or the new parent of humanity. So it's like we're negotiating our new personal visions and our vision as a whole with coming back to the foundation, to the question of where do we come from? Because we can't know where we're going if we don't know where we come from. So we're going back to the most basic fundamental questions of what is it to be human? What are we? Are we organic humans of the green, of nature, of the trees? Or are we really just robotic recording machines? These questions have been brought up, and definitely on a certain side of the fence of the elites or the power bases, they foment these arguments all the time and dismiss organic humans and say you can better yourself by becoming more silicone based or more and doing all this stuff to your body. And so I think we're dealing with that tension, because even with the family, even in terms of the family, what it means to be a mother or a father, or the role of a husband and wife, all these things are being challenged and maligned from all angles, right? So we've been set up where the female is against the male and the male is against the female on all these new narratives and isms and philosophies, right? And they're being promoted ad infinitum to us. in order to ensure the destruction of the familial patterns and what it is to be a family, whether with children or not, what it is for humanity to come from a family and the value of that and what that means. And it feels like this negotiation with the Aries vortex is what we're going through. It's okay, so I want to have this vision, but the question that we're dealt with all year with that Jupiter square with Cancer is Jupiter's asking us, have you learned what it is to be human? Have you learned what it is to feel what you need to feel? Or are you becoming top heavy? Are you becoming just a mechanized mind, living in the logical mind? And I think whatever direction it goes into, right, the planets are always moving in tension. So they're always fighting it out or dealing with that tension somehow, and they're always balancing out, but not to any permanent state, or perhaps at times to an ideal or to some specific states of being. But it does seem with these transits, from what you guys are sharing, just listening to you and re-narrating it right now, I feel like we're not being allowed to move into the machine mind. It's very interesting, because if you consider what you said, Mario, about the retrogrades all in water signs, we also know that the South Node is in Pisces, South Node's in Virgo, and the North Node's in Pisces. So intuition, feeling beyond the veil, not seeing what's beyond the veil, but feeling into that is what's expanding. Is the North Node. The North Node expands whatever it touches, where the South Node lets go and empties out and just gets it and purifies it. So logical thinking is right now in the state that we're in, logical thinking is at an end. We have no power, and we've reached an apex. Science has reached a certain apex. And we've known this for 20, 30 years. Science these days sounds more like poetry or fantasy than it does any kind of specific black and white, dualistic, dichotomous framework. You know what I mean? It's become like this poetic narration of a graphic presentation of a verse. So that's what it seems. It seems we're really dealing with what it is to be human in a body and to come from another body, and the importance and the value of that and the beauty of that. And we're going to be appreciating that more and more, because with Uranus and Gemini, and we've all talked about this, with all the outer planets moving into air and fire, that's like taking off. That's like taking off the earth, the ground, the womb. That's like moving somewhere else, away from the mother. And that narrative is very suspect, but it's presented to us because that's what the outer planets are doing. You know what I mean? That's the Aries vortex. It wants to take off and fly us somewhere else. But where are we in this? Where are we? And it's presenting this narrative. I'll stop in a minute because there's so much there, but just to add into where we're kind of segueing, because we're segueing now into the Jupiter-Pluto, is I want to say that in January, late January, around January 21st, all the planets went through Aquarius, starting with the sun. Not starting with the sun. The sun made its conjunction with Pluto around January. Now, at that time, all the other planets soon followed, all the personal planets soon followed through that week of January 20th to 30th. And I remember during that time, I said there's going to be a lot of secret power plays, hidden power plays happening. Now, we're dealing with the opposite configuration. Now we have Jupiter going in to Leo with all the planets now in opposition to Pluto.
Yeah.
Now, instead of the Cazimi of the sun, including the sun, Pluto, and all the planets going into the sun and experiencing a plutonic purification, now it's a fight. Now it's like Pluto's getting in the way. Pluto is the gatekeeper, and it's saying, okay, where are you going? I'm right here. You're passing through my realm. And that's what's happening now. And this information that Jupiter has learned, right? Because as Casey said, Jupiter is the teacher. It's how we learn. Wherever your Jupiter is how you learn things. It's what you teach. It's how you lead. And in that sense, what's happening is there's some kind of tension occurring where power, our authentic personal power, is being called into question. And the message from Cancer is, okay, did we learn what we need to learn about nurturing ourselves? There's just, to me, it seems there's a theme of nurture and discipline, especially with Saturn in the Aries vortex. One of the ways, I think, the valuable ways we learn and grow in life is by being nurtured, nurturing ourselves, but at the same time being super disciplined and making sure that we follow that strict Saturnian discipline in order to build something. And yet we can only do that if we're being fed, taken care of, or taking care of ourselves, and also feeling what we need to feel, right? All those Cancerian factors. So it seems right now that's where we are, right at that point. With the retrograde, we're still processing the message, as Casey was saying, of Jupiter going back, or Mercury taking that message back into Cancer and seeing, okay, am I nurtured? Is mom taken care of? Is the earth taken care of now that I'm moving forward into Leo? Because at Leo, we arrive at a new thematic, a new vision. And I'm sure you guys feel it. Everyone feels it right now, like everything's suddenly flipped. Everyone feels like the prominence of Jupiter moving into the Leo part of their chart, right? And something's really shifting there. Something has been learned and is being absorbed from its Cancerian experience with the Aries vortex, with that balance of nurturing and discipline. Something is happening there, and there's a new vision that's presenting itself. And so I'll leave it there if you want to bring it back, Mario, to our next direction, or just from there, because we're moving into other aspects. July is just endless with that.
Yeah, you said a lot of great things, and one of the things, and you said the new vision, the new lesson with Jupiter going into Leo after completing the Cancer transit. And so one of the things that I've interpreted or I'm seeing is with all the expansion and the awarenesses and the work being done with the Cancer element, recognizing your upbringing, your home, your family dynamics, and with the Chiron squares, wounds have been triggered, things have been opened, and this entire time has just been the expansion. But now with the Mercury retrograding, it's the integration and the processing, just as Jupiter enters Leo and Mercury meeting with the sun, that's going to bring that information into our conscious awareness, where now we're able to really grasp it. It's a completion cycle. And the next stage with the Jupiter and Leo, it's like the inner child. It's like the inner child now trying to come out and play. It's so, for example, let's say during that Jupiter Cancer retrograde, with the expansion and the square to Aries, you realized certain dynamics about your childhood that didn't click before. And so now there's a new nuance, there's a new layer of having to process a certain toxicity in the way you were treated or in the way things occurred in the household. And there's just been this dynamic of, wow, I didn't realize how messed up that was. And you don't think about it when you're going through it because you think it's just what it is or what it's normal. But now I'm understanding how, because of this certain behavior in my household or whatever, has affected my life. And so with the Jupiter going into Leo, it's now trying to allow that inner child to remember joy, how to have fun, to come out and to play. And there's an interesting immediate challenges with that Jupiter entering Leo, because the first thing that's occurring is that square to Chiron. It's the third final square to Chiron that Jupiter's been making, except now it's not in the Aries Cancer energies, it's in the Taurus Leo energies. So we're having that third final square, and is bringing us to another awareness of things. And we can talk about the Chiron and Taurus a little later, but the thing that I want to highlight, because you were touching on it, is the opposition to Pluto and how all the planets first crossed over Pluto during that Aquarius season in the winter, and now we're coming to the opposition. And with that Jupiter opposition, Casey said something perfect earlier before we hit record about that. But the things that I've been saying about Pluto being in Aquarius, and you kind of touched on that, is is humanity. Is humanity going to be taken over through, not taken over through AI or technology, but is the human heart going to forget itself? And Leo governs the heart. Leo governs, I see Leo as the animation of man, because we go through the first 4 signs: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. And this is development. Who am I? Oh, this is this body, and this is what I like, and this is what I value. Oh, these are my thoughts and my opinions and how I express them. Oh, this is how I feel. And it changes everything. And then all of those 4 elements become animated in the heart and then expressed through the Leo animation of the metahuman, the performer, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger. And with that Pluto and Aquarius, it's sending the death rays towards that Leo archetype. That's the death rays in Aquarius are directly aimed at the Leo energy. So anything that has to transit through Leo, it's this challenge, this battle of what we're witnessing on the world stage of data centers being built, all these narratives, these dialectic battles and agendas that comes to politics and humanity, and things coming, like having arguments about, should it be okay that we have men in drag shows going to children and stripping in front of children? Is that a normal thing? Should we allow that? But still, we're seeing it. We're seeing a collective of parents and adults that don't see an issue, and they're like, this is fine. This is fun. This is a family event. I'm going to give $1 to my child to go to that man dressed as a woman dancing like a stripper. This has been happening all around the country. So it's this interesting thing of, what the fuck are we doing? And how did certain things get to this point where we're tolerating these things? Because I know Aquarius has let the freak flag fly, be who you are, do all these things, whatever. But when it comes to Pluto in Aquarius, right? Because Pluto is that underbelly, the shadow, the taboo, the things that are hiding. And so it's this process of trying to reveal to the collective the agendas that are in play in trying to manipulate societies and humanities towards a certain direction. And that manipulation is attacking that Leo energy of being the animation of man. And the other thing with that Leo energy is Leo is the child. So with Pluto and Aquarius sending its death rays to Leo, children are very vulnerable right now. And I also feel this counts for the inner child within all of us. As children are under attack, they're vulnerable. There are a lot of agendas through technology, computers, and societies like the LGBTQ plus hijacked society. There's a lot of gays out there that don't want to be associated with the LGBTQ because they're like, what the fuck is going on? This has been entirely hijacked. And I have nothing against gays. My best friend, my soul brother, he's one of the most gayest guys ever. But even he is aware that and he'll tell me all the time, like, yeah, being gay is like, the gay community is not the same as it used to be. It's been corporatized. And we've seen that, right? Every Pride Month, all these corporations, right? And it's not that they support gays. It's just that there's money, there's marketing. And so it's a super interesting thing that we're seeing here. And I think with this Jupiter and Leo transit, there's going to be two certain things occurring. There's going to be an uptick of the strangeness and people still being checked out and going along with it. This is normal because this is what's been normalized through my TV, through my shows, through my algorithm. This is normal. This is accepting. This is woke culture. This is what it means to be progressive. And that's how they've delivered it. And so you don't see anything wrong. And then there's going to be the other end that is trying to remember the spirit of the human heart. And it's a challenge, especially for folks like us that have a platform and show our faces and speak our truth and demonstrate our skills. Because if Leo is the performer, then opposite Aquarius is the audience, right? So, and the audience these days is the internet. So for anybody that has their own platform, that has their own stage, that has their own song to sing, if it's going against the collective agendas, the algorithms, then we're likely going to be under direct attack almost immediately. And I've experienced this. For example, on Instagram, there was this, and I'll end it at this story here, but on Instagram, there was this young, beautiful Native American man with the long, straight black hair, braided and all that. And he was somewhere out in nature, and has his phone filming himself, and he's doing it so you can see the 4 white people behind him. And they're like they're like retired age white people, and they're at a park enjoying a river. And this native man, he's saying things, they took our land, these are colonizers, us indigenous have been shoved into a reservation for the world to forget, while all these white colonizers get to enjoy my land, our land. And he's just getting louder and saying more and more offensive things. And yeah, I get it, right? I know history, I understand what happened, but the history we know has been taught to us by all the educational books in the public school system was created by Ghislaine Maxwell's father. So they told us the stories of history in a certain way to imprint a overlay on how to perceive it and how to feel it. And so it doesn't help us progress. It keeps us in the victimization state because there's been no philosophical wisdom on how to heal from what has been done. There's just the story of what has been done and how bad it was. And so when I see videos like that these days, I go to the comments, because the comment sections is going to tell you where the collective's at and how they're responding to it. And all the comments are like, hell yeah, brother, you tell them that's how it's done. Get these colonizers out of here. Fucking white people this, white people that, you know? And so that's telling me the hypnosis, the spell, the same ancestral energy that, you know, that everyone is cycling through. And so I commented on that saying, you know what? The me 10 years ago would have been like, hell yeah, that's how you stick it to them, dude. Way to make them uncomfortable on our land and push them out. That's how you do it, brother. But not anymore, because I've broken out of the program. I've broken out of the agenda that is supposed to keep that very individual limited. Because again, when we're talking about the true spirit of the human heart, that intelligence is far greater than anything else. And that intelligence alone isn't going to act from that wounded, victimized state, projecting and hurting and further creating division with the people who may have ancestors that were a part of something hundreds of years ago. So I can't get behind that certain thing these days. And so my comment gets all these rejections. Let me guess, you're half white. Oh, he has a colonized brain. He doesn't get it. Oh, he's a white sympathizer, right? So it doesn't matter what it is you decide to voice your truth against. Doesn't matter if it's, I'm going to say, instead of all Blacks lives matter, white lives matter. White people this, no, everyone this. You get what I'm saying? And this is going to be an interesting dynamic of, with the Chiron and Taurus, the values, the wounded values, and trying to heal, and what is the way forward. Because when it comes to Pluto in Aquarius, and Aquarius being this genius-like energy where the deeper desire of Aquarius is to somehow help create evolution, to solve problems, to humanity problems, and create evolution, or to help make things better. We're having to go through a lot of the unconscious conditioning. And so where I'm trying to stand on is, okay, in a healed world in the future, all these things that we're fighting about is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And so why are we still entertaining it now? And again, the thing I try to also add to the equation is none of us are each other's enemies. We all have the same enemy. And as long as we continue this stupid shit, that native dude wasted all his energy hating 4 innocent white retired dudes just wanting to enjoy a river. When all of them, those 4 old folks and him, have the same enemy. You get what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, wow. I really liked a lot of stuff you said there about Pluto, the way that you put the whole thing with the audience and how we're just kind of like, you know what I mean? Nothing that we can say is all of this approval of this kind of corrupted. The reason why Pluto is in Aquarius is because it's here to purify the corruption of humanity. And that's exactly what's been going on, is because it's the sign Aquarius's turn to be brought to the underworld to get rid of all this corruption, all this toxic, dark baggage that we have been divided up against, because they don't want us to make a united stand, because obviously they want to divide us because we would be making a united stand to overthrow them. So I've always said Pluto in Aquarius is either the power of the people or it's the power over the people. And I think that with the things that you were saying about the children and all that, yeah, they keep trying to perpetuate this so that the generations of humanity can keep getting more and more corrupted and further away from the human heart. But then again, you can also see that without Leo, without Aquarius, there's just like self-importance as well. And then Aquarius without Leo, there's loss of the human heart. And then going back to what Meten was talking about, being fully going through this whole transition of the Jupiter and everything that we were talking about, like being fully realized as a human. And as we character build our new identities through Saturn and Aries, it's very interesting, like how it's all coming together, and like how like, for instance, like we have now Uranus in Gemini, and that's actually in trine to Pluto in Aquarius. And this is another thing that represents the collective as well, because Uranus governs over the collective consciousness, and Pluto and Aquarius is the collective of humanity. And that trine, I think, is going to help us actually think about, like really actually think about, like something that we don't think about very often is like, what are we going? And when I mean that, I mean as like collectively, as a whole. Have we ever really thought about it that much? Have we ever really considered our role and where this is all going, where we're going, how we're going to come to, are we going to really extend ourselves to trust past the division, to take it to the extra step? Yeah, I think this trine with Uranus to Pluto, I think is really going to help aid us to really think about stuff like this, and really like be like, this opposition of Pluto and Jupiter, yeah, our morale needs to be, because it's still a reflection of the Jupiter and Leo. Our morale is very self-centered and very just, whoa, look at me and this is that, you know what I mean? It's a reflection. Our whole morale is very self-centered. And the effect from that cause is this audience thing that you were talking about, that is very divided and very just almost animalistic and just deranged. Now, you know, the negative side of Aquarius. So, man, yeah, I loved everything there, and all the stuff you said too prior, Meten. It was, led up to all this, and it was,
you guys as well.
like that.
Can I just add one quick thing real quick, just a super quick tidbit that I like what you said about the thinking because of the trine. And some of the things that people are thinking more are things like, wait a minute, McDonald's sells 6 billion burgers a day. How many cows is that? We don't have that many cows? What the fuck are they even serving then? What is even in that meat? And then it's a domino effect of thinking.
Yeah.
And so that's when you said that, that's immediately where my mind went.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I also think that the Chiron in Taurus is going to help heal through these false value systems that we have to live through and spend our time here on this earth. And speaking of earth and nature, I think we're also going to heal through a lot with this Chiron energy. We're going to heal and unlock the abundant resources of the earth. And we're going to start to learn how to go and live in small communities and take back our rightful place. And with peaceful, stubborn Taurus non-compliance, it's going to be like, we're going to learn our fundamental birthrights and our sovereignty, I think, will be healed as long as we unlock out of these financial burdens and we really gain a sense of adequacy, which is a part of Chiron and Taurus, and knowing our self-worth, knowing our true value and stuff of that nature. Yeah. Just to add on top of that, I think that's another factor where I can see a lot of the good and the progress being made for, just purifying and really running humanity, the Aquarius humanity, through that Pluto filter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it, because what both you guys were saying about Pluto having to deal, or Pluto, for everything coming in the way of the scope of the Pluto rifle, the assassin's kind of rifle, is especially the human heart. If we get so literal into what Pluto is and what Pluto does, we have to step back. Okay, what is Aquarius? What's the symbol? Well, it's the male water bearer, right? And water is life, and it's a man, symbolic of a man, an image of man. And yet Pluto is going through the sign of Aquarius. So what does that mean? And what are the symbols that we as humans, what are the symbols that we've been creating as a collective? The one that comes to mind right away, and people are going to probably hate on me for this, is the whole Burning Man collective. Because if you study that, and you don't have to study too much, it's just the image, just think about it. It's very simple. A burning man. So a sacrificial, ritualistic, yearly celebration of a human figure being burned.
Yeah.
What does that imprint upon the etheric field of the collective? What kind of message is that carrying? And what is this culmination and this highly conditioned and probably created like stage setup of the Aquarian age? Because this was happening in the 60s, 70s, all the songs that came out about this.
Yeah.
And it was being promulgated and promoted as this grand edifice, this grand image of man's next shift.
Yeah.
And again, what is Pluto in Aquarius? Pluto destroys whatever it touches. But that destruction, of course, is a form of transmutation. Yes, of course, it's a form of transformation. But we must remember that Pluto is a relentless force. Once it turns on, it destroys everything in its way that's not authentic. Every part of what it touches is tested for authenticity. So the question for us as humans is the human heart itself. Is our heart ours? Is it our authentic heart? Is what we're holding on to in our heart, is it of value? Do we even have a heart? With all this digitization, have we been feeding our heart? Comes back to the nurturing of Cancer. Have we been feeling and expanding it and strengthening it? And then we say, of course, you can't live if you don't have a beating heart. Of course. But what beats in measure to the human heart, right? This also goes along with the music. There's only certain types of music that actually beat in unison with the human heart, right? The heart's at about a 70 BPM rate average, right? So how much of the music of humanity, like the drums, which is the heart of a song or of music, how often does that beat in rhythm, in alignment with the human heart? So these are all just interesting questions, because when we have Pluto in Aquarius, a very simple read, a literal read of it is the destruction of humanity. That's a very dry, black and white, literal reading of what that means. Now we go deeper and we say, okay, but it's not that simple, right? Pluto is a force. It's a purifying force. It is relentless in its process, but it is a purification. What does it mean then that Pluto is touching through the Aries vortex or the July maelstrom, in a way, all these planets at 4 degrees, including Jupiter, right? All the outer planets at 4 degrees sign. And at that kind of interaction, when all those outer planets meet, what does that mean for humanity? First off, they're all being touched by Pluto. So what you guys both have just said powerfully, and to animate it with real stories, Marios, I think that's the real power here. Because these are the tales of our modern life. These are the real life and blood of what we're all experiencing as a collective, especially when it gets videoed. Those are symbolic imprints. Those are our human symbolic imprints into the etheric field of what is to be human or what is not to be human. Because we're getting both images all the time.
Yeah.
And touching Uranus is the higher mind. It's destruction of the higher mind. Touching Jupiter, how we learn, all that's fucking being destroyed. How we learn, our process of how we learn. When this opposition faces each other, and it's doing it right now, how we learn as humans is completely changing and transforming. And there's been rumors of this because as the solar plexus turns on according to human design, emotions become a new awareness center. And we're not so stuck anymore in privileging the mind as what it is to be human and the authority of the human body. That's no longer the case. Now we move into an emotive awareness. We move into the solar plexus as an awareness center. So how we then learn, we'll see. It's a new vision. It's a new experience for all of us. But we know we are making a huge transformation from the literal logical mind to the lateral mind. In all practices, I was listening to David Block yesterday in a recent interview, and he was talking, he's being asked about his experiences with magic, and he was saying, it's not anything intellectual, it's not knowledge that comes into me when I have these experiences and do these things. It's a feeling thing. It's energetic shifts that I subtly feel in my space that are occurring. And that's what it is for all of us, that the new kind of frame for what it is to be human will be an understanding that we don't need to fucking figure shit out. We just need to be in what we feel and move with those energies in a way that it's in accordance with our own truth. And with that Chiron triggering the square being a part of it as well, what you guys are both bringing up are like the old ways of thinking, right? Those old, tired, cliched, outdated victimizer cycles that we don't need to dance in anymore.
No.
And those are all dances. Those are just a very simple game of musical chairs. You're the victim. I'm the victimizer. Now let's switch. You know what I mean? Let's switch roles. But that's the game. That's the opposition game that they've kept us in, or that we've chosen to keep ourselves in. And that's the game to escape. But we can't escape that, meet that without a higher realization, a higher understanding. And that higher understanding is grace, because to suffer means not to find the one who's a victimizer of your suffering, or you can, and you can do all these things and you can get revenge or not, or just address it, or you can switch the roles. But really, we're all suffering because that's what growth is. That's what the Plutonic process is. But the only thing we can do is choose how we suffer. We're going to suffer. There's nothing we can't do anything about that. But how do we suffer? We suffer with grace. And grace helps us to avoid the victim and the victimizer cycle. And that grace is also holding still to the flame in the alcove of the human heart, holding still and holding guard over our own human heart and what it is to feel and be there with it, and to take time every day to be with your own heart. Because I think what both you guys said is we're being highly triggered back into these old stories. It's already written out for us. The stagecraft of this month and the rest of the year and next year, the script is written. All we have to do is read the lines that they're going to be presenting to us, on the media stills. And we'll be back in that game of the victim and the victimizer. So the leap of our modern time is to be the heart, even on fire, as Pluto directs its guns at it, and to continue forth and to keep strong in the human heart. Because there is a relationship between the human heart and the mind. Because if they take our minds, then we lose the control of being able to message, to move our energy here. If the mind is caught up in that feared programming, that Pluto will take over into the imagination through its force, through just observing and letting that force take over, or be scared through the imagination of that force as it does. But we have to be strong with Jupiter and the human heart. I'll stop there because I know I'm getting a little too intense, but it's the trigger. You guys both said it. I think these old stories are they want to play them back over and over again, like old movies, like old series.
That when the South Node then enters Leo, that's the past, and it'll be there with Jupiter. So it's going to play out that old morale. Jupiter rules law and just the societal, morale, basically. And Saturn governs the laws that are to enforce those laws, those principles of Jupiter. And they're going to keep making it where we're just stuck, and the human heart and the human condition is just stuck, or it can't feel like it can get off the ground with that South Node. But at the same time, if we built a foundation that is strong enough to elevate us past, to move us up to that Aquarius North Node, and we're purifying collectively more so than not, we can maybe kind of break out of that curse. But I feel like it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to feel very stagnant, and people can get really bitter. And then the square to Chiron is it's always going to feel like, oh, guilt, shame, pain, just I'm not good enough. I couldn't measure out. I couldn't measure up to this kind of thing. So it's, I just want to add on to that.
Another aspect is, and I always say this, but I want to add something onto it. I usually say that the only thing we owe the world is what our talents are. We're owed our talents to share with the world. You know what I mean? That's why we're here. That's what we owe to it. That's what we need to. But another aspect of that is, to do that, we have to love our individual self. Yeah. That is primary.
Yeah.
Because you can't be for another if you can't love and be for yourself. And with everything that's happening, it's like a light show. Usually every day we see the sun and the moon. But with these outer planets, think about it, above the earth and air and fire, it's like they're playing a light show, okay? Because we know these planetary constructs, it's a clock. We're surrounded by a sky clock. And every movement it makes is a movement it makes within, so that we follow suit like robots to the movement of the clock. And so, as it moves, every once in a while it plays a light show distraction. And that's what July is. It's a light show distraction. And part of loving the human heart is being able to go into yourself and feel your own heart and be with it. You know what I mean? These are your organs. These are your own inner planets.
Yeah.
They live there with you. You have to be able to acknowledge that, and not just live through the externalization, but our energy is just all the time. Everything around us is in competition for our attention. But so is what is within us. Or what's within us needs attention too. And I think the message that I want to just leave for today, one of the main messages in relation to what we're sharing with the transits of this month, is to turn to that inner focus. Because there's a light show playing, and it's pulling our attention. And what is our attention? It's our energy. It's not just what we're consuming here, but what we're consuming here on all the other apertures of our physical body.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll leave it there.
You said a lot of beautiful poetic things in that whole in that whole everything you said. So many things that I want to respond to, but I just can't because I'll take too much time trying to respond to all the things. Yeah, but I love all the things that you were saying. And with the hold on, I just lost myself a minute trying to figure out which specific thing do I want to actually respond to. Oh man, Casey or anybody, if you guys want to talk.
I simplified it, man. I was just like Pluto
Yeah.
touching everything, right?
Yeah,
Pluto,
yeah,
it's relentlessness, trying to transform everything. And that with Chiron causing us to get super triggered automatically, which is the risk of July 19th, by the way. All those sextiles and trines, it's like a playground, I said in my other video. It's like everyone's going to jump on a slide and think it's going to go somewhere good. But once you get on a slide and you slide down, you can't stop. You have to ride it through. And that's what happens with trines and sextiles. It's too easy to turn the corner and keep going. It's hard to stop and address where you are. Am I in the right place? Am I here? In this reality? Am I in another? And it's too easy to go back into old patterns and that victimizer stuff with all the fight with Mars and Uranus and everyone involved. So Pluto is testing all of us, what we've been building and working on, so that once we have to deal with the fire in the moment, are we going to go back to an old way, an old pattern? Or are we going to cut forth to a new pattern and stay with our heart and stay out of fear? But Casey brought it through with that reminder, that South Node in Leo. So it's not just Pluto.
Yeah.
It's the South Node. It's the Chiron square. This is like the wounding of the inner child. This is the inner child having to re-meet all its suffering and to choose grace instead of victimhood.
It's almost like a constant bombardment of having the pressures to choose love or fear.
yeah,
It's just like you're constantly under the pressure, like love or fear, right? But you have to make the right choice. But the thing is, we're probably going to be extra hard on ourselves when we don't, or a little bit maybe prideful, egotistical, like Leo. They're actually very hard on themselves too. They just don't openly show what they're beating themselves up about. I'm a Leo rising. Their defenses can really become their own restriction in a lot of ways. And that's what the habit that we're going to need to learn to break out of.
yeah. So I got my footing now on what I wanted to say. So we're in a point of breaking through. So something you were saying, Meten, about, are we going to go back into the old pattern? Are we going to fall back into the old ways that we've been doing things? And we did have that Uranus square to the nodes just a few weeks ago. And that square is still in resonance. It's one of the ways I like to describe certain transits, especially when it involves components that are slow moving, like the nodes or an outer planet, is like when you ring a gong. When you hit a gong, it doesn't just go ting. It goes boom, boom, boom. Like that sound carries over, and it has it high, and it has nuanced frequencies, and it carries until it fades out. So that square was something that we began going through towards the end of May. It picked up in June, and then on June 12th, it apexed. And we're still in that, experiencing that frequency of the square to the nodes. And that has triggered this process of us having to work through the Virgo South Node karmic energies and figure out what we're doing with the Piscean invitation into the North Node. And because it's Uranus, the way I see it is like the timelines are incongruent right now. There's just the future timeline probabilities are unknown. There's too many because of that square. And so we're in this place where the future is looking like it can go in so many directions. And this is where the part of the human heart is super important, because that is what will be the most sincerest, especially when we come into that. We're in Cancer season right now. This maelstrom is happening during a Cancer season, in the precipice of a Cancer new moon, during a Cancer retrograde. And Cancer is all about sincerity, what it is you're sincerely feeling, and how can you express those feelings. And so we're all overloaded with all of the things that we're seeing. And something you were saying earlier, Meten, about the things we're feeding ourselves. We've become so used to doing this, to just scrolling and scrolling, and we're not even really present with some of the things that we're actually seeing. Our conscious mind's not really present, but the subconscious and the spirit that resides in there is aware of the disturbances we have numbed ourselves to. So, for example, if I go online right now and scroll for any amount of time, I'm likely at some point going to see a video of people fighting in public at a Waffle House, or some weird human trafficking thing, or some pedophilia targeting children, or some political event, or some foreign war going on. And it's to a point where it's normal, where on social media you can literally see people killing each other. There's profiles, there's things like that. You can see murder on social media, and it's a point where we're just sitting there and we're like, damn, oh, hammer to the face, scroll to the next one, ooh, titties and ass, scroll to the next one. And we're not really present, but the subconscious mind is like, what the fuck? You just witnessed a murder. You just saw a murder, and we're not processing that. And the subconscious mind is getting super overloaded with all these things. And there's a part of it that's hurting the spirit. And people are like, it's like when you're a really bad addict and you know you need to quit, but you can't stop smoking crack, and you're sabotaging your entire life, and you know it's wrong. It's like humanity's going through this thing where we are aware of all the fucked up shit that's going on. Like when you're scrolling and you're seeing teenagers attack adults and elderly people, you might people are looking at that and they're just like, ha, or they'll go on the comments and say usual suspects or things like that. But there's a part of them that is registering the pain that is moving through humanity, because this isn't right. This isn't normal. This isn't how a high functioning society should be. And America, this is America. Is this really how we do it out here? Is this really how we raise our children? Is this really how we take care of our people? And so it's really interesting of the things that are going on. And it's just a lot of crazy shit. But it's, oh man, I'm getting flustered here, but I'm gonna just pivot to a different thing real quick. But we're at this point where it's like, oh gosh, I'm getting really intense with a number of different things, and I'm trying to filter what is important to actually speak on. Thank you for sitting with me at this moment. But yeah, I'll just stop there.
Thanks for sharing, man. You always share very important points. That's hella deep, because it's been rehashed over and over again. Yeah, okay, we all know what we're doing, but what is it doing to our spirit? Because we know that every time you experience something, whether it's through imagination, a video game, a video, like your mind doesn't know, your spirit doesn't know the difference, so it takes it on as reality. And it's, oh, like you said, I just saw someone murdered. That's your spirit panicking. If it's true, that's what it's just seen. And we're just like, it's like a drug, because it's doing something it's doping us. It's like, what, one hit of dopamine, another hit, every image, right? Every new image we scroll through is another hit. Even if we don't watch the video. I remember I got into the habit of not watching the videos, just watching the title. Worse. It's a movie trailer or just a movie poster, and you just go scrolling through movie posters, and these images are being imprinted in your mind. You shared such an impactful statement with that, because we just hear these things over and over again, and we just filter it out. But no, you went to the heart of it, which is that it's the plutonic death ray coming out through the phone. We're aiming it at ourselves. We're aiming it at our own souls and our own hearts and our own minds.
It's the Uranus and Gemini factor, because Uranus governs technology. And then you have Gemini, you have a split two minds. And the AI is almost like representative of two people, because they can make many versions of you as well. And then it's just that technology then is bombarding the mind to corrupt the Pluto in Aquarius of humanity. And then this is where we feel the pressure, I think, of the square from Pluto to Chiron, where we're realizing we were never meant for this. We were never meant for this life, to spend our time on Earth this way. Human beings were meant to live in like small communities with 100 people and not know all this news and happenings of the world, and be living in a system where we're constantly just like comparing ourselves and who has what and what has. Oh, I want that too. Oh yeah, you know what? That's really cool. And then you think you need this and you think you need that. It's where I feel if we do enough healing, the Chiron and Taurus, where it's going to be a time where we can really figure out exactly how do we want to spend our life here on Earth. And then with the collective of Uranus, the technology standpoint is going to be the struggle, because, and especially with Gemini, because Gemini can be lost in the woods with a broken compass. They can think that they know the direction to go. And then they get there and they're like, no, they change up direction and then go in another direction and another direction and another direction. And the directions become endless. It's like,
That's a great image for the cover of this.
So it's
duplication of beings all lost in a maze.
Yeah, exactly. Like lost souls. And I think the mental illness rate can continue to climb. And then I think, unfortunately, once we get to Uranus and Cancer, it'll be like a full-bred inherited thing in humanity, where it just becomes this passed on cycle if we don't correct it, where it's just this inherited.
It's the higher mind. It's the higher mind.
Yeah.
It's connecting to the Pluto death ray. So it's being destroyed. The logical mind's being destroyed.
Yeah.
Having to transcend it's having to transcend to the simultaneity of time in a way. Because we only recognize logical time because we're imprisoned in Saturnian time structure. We do have to also transcend that, because that's the trap, really, is time itself, whatever that is, whatever space and time, which are two features of the same kind of clock.
Yeah.
There's really no difference between the two. Order each other.
Yeah. And I find it really interesting of what you're saying with Pluto destroying the higher mind. That's a really interesting description of that aspect to Pluto and Uranus. And it's not one that I thought of before, but I understand, with Pluto being that relentless death transformational force, and Uranus being the collective and the higher mind. And one of the things that and this is funny because during the last Mercury retrograde, I wrote this long article about Uranus. It came to me as a download, and I spent 2 hours typing crazy. And right as I was coming to the end of it, something happened to my computer and it didn't save it, and I had to reboot it, and it was just gone. And I haven't been able to recreate that same just fluidity of information and connections that I was picking up on during that time. But 'cause one of the beautiful things that is happening is we are evolving, and the mind is being destroyed. And what's being destroyed is the mind that's been imprisoned. It's the guards, because for the last, I don't know, when did the Rockefellers create the public educational school system? When did we start creating the school systems we're in right now, this religion of science we're in right now? Because before, when things were all broken apart and people had their own societies, their own tribes, their own cultures, these people in their own way discovered the same truths and the same spiritual principles and had profound understandings and connection to the earth and connection to spirit. But then at some point when the whole world became colonized and we began going through an industrial revolution, and for the first time ever, people are moving to massive cities, and where the collective is going through an identity crisis. Because before, you were born in a tribe, you were born in a village, you were given a name. That village, that tribe had customs, there were traditions that honored your rite of passage of becoming a man, of becoming a woman, and understanding what that means and how to show up for your people. Now we're all going to cities and we're dressed in uniform and we don't know our name, we don't know our original language, and we're getting in line and we're not special anymore. And there's just been this new society, this new global society that's been going on. And within that global society, the mind has been imprisoned, and it's all about what science can prove. Science hasn't been able to prove that. Science doesn't really say this. Science doesn't. But the ancients, right? A few years ago, the first ever picture of a photon was taken. And the picture is the literal symbol of the yin yang symbol. Have you guys seen that? So the very first image of a photon particle was captured, and the image is literally a yin yang symbol, where it's a circle and then a swirl through the middle, and one side is a color and then the other side is a polar, and then within each side is a smaller circle of the opposite energy. So it's like, how did the ancients know this? And that's what happens every time when science finally can reveal or prove something or measure something. How did the ancients know this, right?
Science is just
And
old magic. We all know that.
yeah, exactly.
Magic's
It's
always been what it is.
exactly.
It's just crystallized magic is all science is.
And so the mind that's being
Yeah.
destroyed is the mind that can't see beyond the matrix that's been created for us, that we've been taught in the educational school system, and what's possible. And things like telepathy is something that's going to become normalized. I don't know if you guys have heard of the telepathy tapes, which has been this study of nonverbal autistic children that are super psychic. They're very psychic and they can telepathically communicate. I highly recommend going into the telepathy tapes. It is some amazing things. We're talking super nonverbal autistic children that can read your mind, that can remote view and talk to another person, and it's been scientifically proven. And this is part of the next thing that's happening for us, is the constructs that have limited the mind in our ability in how we interface with frequencies and this quantum realm. We're evolving to now return into the understanding of that. Because how was it that an ancient Chinese group were able to come up with the yin yang symbol, and it's also the image of a photon? What could a person have been doing to acquire that knowledge? Meditation, going within, going into the mind and surrendering, and being brought through a higher power, brought in to the knowledge to be shown it and download and integrate that wisdom. And I think we're returning to a point of that, which is going to create a fracture of people remembering, right? Not remembering 200 years ago or 300 years ago and who was raping who, but remembering much further back when we had golden eras, when we were a higher functioning society. And I also believe that in that process, it's going to be opening us up to begin interfacing with non-terrestrial frequencies. whether they be deities or angels or extraterrestrials or archonic frequencies. I think for those of us who have been building our arc over the last 12 to 14 years, becoming real, feeling and sensing and understanding that a flood is coming and the flood's going to take over and wipe out humanity. This time, it's not an actual flood of water, it's a flood of information and frequencies, suffocating the mind, suffocating us in another way. And we've been building our arc, our spiritual bodies, our light bodies, our wisdom, our morals, and our principles to arrive to this point as the flood is fucking here right now. And it's going to create this fracture point of how can we do this while the rest of the world is drowning and on fire in a way. And it's super interesting. I can keep going on that, but one of the other things that you mentioned, Meten, way back, something really interesting about AI becoming the parent. And I find that really interesting because I don't know if you saw, but it was several months ago, may have been earlier in the year. I don't remember when it was, but it was this big moment where the first lady, what's her name? Ivanka Trump or Melania Trump, Trump's wife, the first lady, she makes a grand introduction in one of these big meetings or ceremonies to introduce to the world, introduce to the country, the first AI robotic teacher. And she gave this whole presentation and speech of how this is the future. And it's this humanoid robot that is embedded with AI and programmed to be the teacher of students. And like you said, we're coming into a point where this is the future they're showing us. We don't want actual teachers with human hearts. Because I remember growing up in the ghetto of Los Angeles, especially in elementary school and middle school, half the time my teachers were not teaching us curriculum education. Half the time they were teaching us morals and principles and how the things we see in the gangs, in the ghetto, and the behavior isn't right, and how to behave in society. They were teaching us how to be human, not just how to do division and fucking algebra. And so now we're seeing this potential future that's being presented to us by the first lady, right? First lady, the mother of America, that we're moving into a future where physical beings in the classroom being obsolete, and we're going to have robots teaching the children. Super interesting things, super interesting things. And with because there's interesting layers with this Cancer energy, with the whole patriotism and the mother and family and that sort of stuff. I feel like with all these things, there is a hidden layer where there's a treasure chest, and we're trying to find that treasure chest. And I do love the fact that Cancer is a sign that represents the ocean, because we have so many stories and tales of ships crashing and sinking into the bottom of the ocean that were carrying some pirate's treasure. And I just love the image of a crab underneath the seabed just guarding this treasure, right? Just projecting this and guard, but in the treasure, all it is just pearls of wisdom or memories that have been lost at sea, like in the Titanic, right? It's just this, I'm going to throw the gemstone out there, and now it's just a memory in my mind, and it's lost forever, and no one else will know what memories were contained in there. And I feel like we're trying to remember something far more ancient than just this modern history we're presented. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Thanks, man, so much.
That's really.
Should we leave it there, guys? Any last words, and then maybe we leave it there?
I don't know. Were we going to talk about Mars Uranus a little
That's
bit?
what I'm thinking too. That's the only thing we missed. Is the Mars.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Okay.
Should we just do one? But yeah, that was great, Mario. Really good.
That's so much she said, man.
We can make another part 2 off of just that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Mars just hit 3 degrees Gemini, so we're now
Yeah.
we're now with Uranus there. And that
All I want to say about this is I'm not going to mess around with any fireworks. 4th of July. I'm messing around with it, especially with Gemini ruling by Mercury, which is retrograde on top of it. I mean, I think it's a good chance that we're going to hear about some more crazy firework accidents and some
good
that
point.
nature for 4th of July.
Okay, we're gonna be hearing a lot of fire trucks.
Yeah.
Fire
It's
trucks.
also the 250th birthday of the U.S. and it's going to get crazy and rebellious, and it's going to be also the retrograde is going to tie in. All I know, I'm going to try to lay low as possible, stay far away from fireworks. I don't even know if I'm going to get poppets for my kids to throw on the ground. Who knows what? They're putting something else in them or what? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, you guys go on. Start it off.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be going inner and look at the fireworks going inside of myself. It's wild. That's about it. Definitely not gonna stay focused on the outside. It's too much of a world stagecraft opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not going out at all. I'm gonna stay home and actually build a catio for my cats. So I'm gonna build a little house that's outside on the window and create an opening so that way they can crawl out the window and kind of hang out outside beside the house, because they're indoor cats, but I want them to have some outdoor. So I'm just gonna stay home. And me and my wife, we're gonna get arts and crafty with it. We got some wood, we got some material, and then maybe we'll just open a bottle of wine and barbecue some good old burgers or some shit. I don't know. But in regards to the Mars Uranus conjunction, I'll just say this thing, and I don't know if you guys saw. I shared the video yesterday that I made. I don't know if you guys saw this couple that climbed the Empire State Building.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I loved that whole thing, because the more I keep thinking about it, the more the astrology is in the whole thing. And so we had these 2 couples, which was Gemini, the twins, the lovers, and in tarot, the lovers is the actual Gemini card. So we're having the twins, we're having lovers with Uranus, the rebel, right? And Mars, the fight and the passion to overcome obstacles, right? Like the ram climbing obstacles and I get out of my way. I don't care about this barrier. I don't care about that barrier. And so the support with the Uranus is igniting the rebellion spirit within the warrior heart. But then also Gemini, the message. What's the message? The words. They had a flag with words on it and the message. And the message itself was this overarching philosophical theme, Jupiter and Leo. So in their philosophical message was when the power of love beats the love of power, the world will know peace. Very Jupiter, philosophical, broad message. And these people, they climbed the Empire State Building, the tippity top of the antenna, and they unfurl that flag with that message. And then then when they come down to just one level, the dude gets on one knee and proposes, okay? And Venus is in Leo right now. And Venus made an opposition. Venus was the first planet in Leo to make the first opposition to Pluto. So it was just this grand gesture of fuck the world. I love you. And I'm literally at the rooftop. Marry me. And then the woman, when she says yes and puts the ring on her finger, she starts taking pictures of her hand. And what part of the body does Gemini rule? The hands. So now she has a new gemstone of her hand, and she's taking pictures of her hand where you see her hand and you see the entire city of New York City just on the horizon. You see the water, you see the city, the island, whatever, Manhattan. I don't know. I've never been to New York City. Then you see the hand, right? Gemini. And I loved every single aspect of that whole thing, because for me, it was more proof, right? When people say, oh, astrology is bullshit. No, you're an idiot, okay? The macrocosm always has a way of manifesting in the microcosm. And what we witnessed here is a literal transcription of the macrocosm influencing the micro. And the more we look at it, the more layers we see, the more connections we're going to find. And I love that. And I feel that was what's the carrion call of what a lot of these aspects, is it the carrion, the clarion, right? That's the word, the clarion call. I don't know the right word, but it's this call to the world, this call to the universe. And they had this message, and they literally were on the antenna. They were hanging off the antenna of the Empire State Building. And what do antennas do? They receive and broadcast frequencies. And these two people, these lovers, man and women, polar opposites, holding on to this spire, this antenna, opening this flag to broadcast a frequency of not just love, but fuck the rules, fuck the man, fuck everything else. We do what we do. We're sexy, we're hot, we're not afraid. And I'm gonna do this, and you're all gonna see. We don't care about the consequences. Write me a ticket, throw me in jail. I'm doing this. And I think that's a message for the world, for everybody right now. Besides all the different things that are going on that are heavy and they fucking suck, is the magic, right? Well, the magic that's available right now. And with that North Node in Pisces at 0 degrees, Mars squared the nodes recently. And with Jupiter, just the grandiose love and the animation. It's, if you know the movie, the Harry Potter, right? The Harry Potter movie. There's one of the movies where Harry receives an elixir, and it's like the elixir of luck, right? And he drinks it, and everyone's, what's happening? And the elixir of luck, all it literally did was put him at such a high vibratory state. It put him in such a good mood. And that high vibratory state and that good mood made him smile. It made him happy. It made him cheerful. It made him more open, more heart open, more communicative. And that was all that was needed through the body to generate a frequency of attraction and luck. And that's magic. And I think that is one of the greater things we need to try to access this summer. With all the chaos that's going on, is like emanating and generating that love, that excitement, that passion, that readiness to sing your song, even if people are going to go, boo, you suck, fag, you're gay, you're stupid, that guy drinks piss. Do what it is you fucking do, and be so in love with it, so passionate and animated about that. And the world is going to respond and magnetize to that and bring in blessings and expansion and opportunities. And with the Mars, Uranus, and Gemini, networking, connecting, building bridges, information coming across. So there can be a little bit of chaos. There can be some violence. There can be some upheavals. There can be a lot of distractions that go on. But again, for us who have been building our arc, for us who, because everybody's the Aries vortex, that happened for everybody in your chart. And what has it been since the Aries vortex that you have been invited to reimagine and recreate yourself? What is that? And are you excited about it? Are you passionate about it? Because now's the time to become animated and move towards that, and become so animated and in love with it that people think you're fucking delusional, and let them think you're delusional, because you are alchemizing, you are creating, you are turning lead into gold, you're making magic happen. And I'm in that situation right now. We talked about reverting back to the old habit. And recently I got fired from a job, and I've been doing astrology part-time. And the first month of becoming a full-time online astrologer was great. My community came to support. I had a lot of bookings. Things were going good. Then right around week 5 or week 6, things started to slow down. And I'm like, oh. And then I came to a point where I had a week where nothing was happening. And then there's that there, and that's the most important part. What it is, where are you in life where you're being challenged, where you decided, you know what, I'm going to make a shift. And maybe it was going good for a minute, and now you're being challenged. And are you going to revert back to the old habit? Because the old habit for me is, I don't like how it feels not making money right now. I should go get a job. That's the old habit. And I'm at a breaking point right now of trying to recreate and reinvent my strategy and my approach on how it is I represent myself as an astrologer and be of service to the world. And with that Saturn and Aries, it's, are you putting in the work? Are you disciplining yourself? What more can you do to be this person, to be a full-time astrologer? So that's where I'm at. And I know if that's where I'm at, that's where a lot of people are at. It's not just me, but I'm open to using components of my life as an example to help it be more transferable and relatable. So where you can see it, the breaking point, are you going to revert back to the homeostasis, to the old habit? Or can you reinvent yourself? Can you recreate yourself and believe in yourself? Because you know you are valuable, you know you have something worthy, you know that your services are, that people need them. And just because you're having this moment of lapse, you're going to panic. You're going into the South Node Virgo, the details, the facts. You're not staying in the hope. You're not staying in the prayer and in the belief that everything is working out for you, and you just need to stick with it. And one of the things that Pisces challenges us is, will you quit? Will you give up before the miracle happens? And it's always the miracle comes through right at that threshold where you feel like, fuck, it ain't working. I think I'm just going to throw in the towel. And sometimes we do. And then we miss out on a ripened piece of fruit that would have changed everything. And this time around, for me, I ain't giving up. And I support everybody to not give up, because the astrology is potent. There's a lot of magic. And we witnessed it by these two lovers climbing the Empire State Building saying, fuck you. And I think we need to mirror that in a way to our own lives. And that's it for me.
Yeah, great breakdown of everything about that event. You broke it down so precisely and poetically. It was just fantastic. And I really liked the video, but then you kind of just took it even further and just added all these other details that were just amazing. And I think that also I want to add on is that I think a lot of people are feeling that financial pressure. We just had the Capricorn full moon and Chiron went into Taurus. Now it's like that financial material security thing is in question. And we're really at that brink where, you know what, though? Something has been brewing all along that seems like it's more important, though. And maybe I'm getting the itch to pursue that instead, regardless of the pressure that I'm feeling of these financial burdens and these false value systems. And that is very relatable to me right now. And I'm also want to be I want to get myself more credible as an astrologer, not just something on the side that kind of comes and goes too. And I haven't really I really made myself a credential as an astrologer, because I'm a family man with 2 kids and I got a topsy-turvy work schedule and a hectic home life. And I don't have the time or the resources that I need. And I really want to start getting serious about that and really put more of my energy into it. And because of that reason, I may be a little bit harder to kind of get a hold of or get me onto these things. But also for that reason, I'm also going to be pushing to put myself out there more too. So I'm got to learn how to balance all this out. And I think that the Capricorn full moon was also teaching us the fine line between our emotions and our reality, and also understanding that our emotions create our reality, but also understanding that they're still 2 separate things, you know? And I think that it's going to bring a lot of emotional balance or emotional regulation that we really need, because we could be either too on the Cancer side where we're too emotional and we need to manage our emotions through practical, productive efforts, or we're managing our emotions too much and we're not feeling into them. and not allowing them to be demonstrated or felt and shown. What other way the balance is between the emotions and the reality, the moon and Saturn, Capricorn being Saturn, it's because you can see a homeless person on the street yelling at somebody, just cursing someone out, and then you go, look, no one's there. Their emotions are there, but the reality isn't there, but they're still experiencing that reality somehow. And the same thing, like our concept of reality could be in the way of our own emotional world. Like our concept of reality may not be flowing with our actual emotions, which are also creating the reality that we're living in. It's like, I feel like we're at that point where this emotional balance and this emotional regulation that this Capricorn full moon is really trying to teach us. And it has a lot to do, I think, with the stuff you said, with the financial burdens and then the pressures and then all that building and that structure. Because then all that Capricorn full moon energy is going right into that Saturn Aries energy as the ruler of how our character building that identity. So I think it has a lot to do with that conundrum of how to regulate our emotions, regulate our finances with our time and our dreams. So, yeah.
Beautifully said.
Let me jump in. That was pretty brilliant, Mario. What you touched upon builds up to exactly where we are, which is that Mars-Uranus is a release point of all these repressed energies we've been dealing with. And you're saying when it all comes up, just don't do what you've done before with it. Don't just let it out by rote or by pattern, but like lift it to a frequency that you want to feel through, that you want to work through, that you want to bring out, even externalize to the world. And with this Mars-Uranus catalyzation, there will be a bubbling up of deep anger and deep emotional energies in each of us.
Yeah.
And so we just have to remember that we don't have to actuate that on the world stage or in the social world. We can let that fire work through our veins and through our own field and through our own breath by doing whatever practices or meditations or methods we feel to. Because that's really the entry point into this maelstrom of July. Is how do we respond? How do we flow with this? How do we ebb and flow? Right? This Mars, Uranus, and then the rest of the encounter of the planets. And yeah, we'll leave it there. It was powerful, you guys. It was powerful. I think we did.
Yeah, very good, very deep. And you guys, we went straight to the jugular on that one.
We did. It's deep. Yeah, deep. It's cool.
So,
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see everyone. Thanks. Comments below, you guys.
Oh no, I just said that's a wrap.
Yeah. We're done here. So comment below, and this will be on all of our channels. I'll put it up on mine too. And this is our part 3, right? This is our 3rd one in 5 months.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as judgment. It's just we're all going through. You know what I mean? We do the best we can.
yeah, I took a little hiatus where I was kind of going through some internal shifts, but I just wanted to note that we started this on the Capricorn new moon, or just around that cycle, and now it's a Capricorn full moon, and then we kind of had that. We did one after the next month, but then we had that hiatus, and then we're kind of bringing it back full force with the illumination of the Capricorn full moon. That's kind of cool.
That's cool.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, no.
All right, you guys. Thanks so
Right.
much. It was brilliant. Both of you guys.
So, yeah, likewise. Brilliant. Both of you guys, great. Really loved it. Enjoyed the time. I do this. We got to make it monthly again somehow.
Yeah.